Sweet Success is brought to you by Hospitality.fm, the podcast network for hospitality professionals.
I'm Nicole Smith, and you're listening to Sweet Success.
You've just checked in to Sweet Success. Join me, Katie Cline, for exclusive conversations with hotel executives, hospitality leaders, and industry innovators. Together, we'll uncover the strategies and techniques these masters of hospitality relentlessly refine. Whether you're already in the industry or just starting out, tune in every week to unlock the secret to your sweet success. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sweet Success. I'm your host, Katie Cline, and today I am beyond excited to get to speak with Nicole Smith. Nicole is the founder of Flytographer, the world's first global vacation photographer platform that connects travelers with amazing photographers in more than 350 global destinations. What started as a side hustle in 2013 has grown into a profitable 8-figure business, which has been trusted by more than 100,000 travelers worldwide and has added more than $30 million into the pockets of local photographers around the world. Nicole, thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, Katie. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited to chat with you. You know, I am a longtime fan and customer, and I just need to know how you first came up with the idea for Flytographer.
Yeah, I'm definitely an accidental entrepreneur. I was working at Microsoft in the corporate world and marketing, and I was on a trip to Paris doing a video shoot for a Microsoft customer. And my best friend who lives in Copenhagen met me for the weekend. So, as you can imagine, I finished my project. I had these 2 extra days. Erica came down, and we had no children or husbands with us. It was just the two of us, no agenda. We were walking the streets of Paris, and we thought we need to get a good memory so we can remember this amazing time together. And it's pretty rare to be alone with your best friend in a really cool city like Paris. For me, it was anyway. So we would walk the streets, and like all of us do, you pull out your iPhone and you want to take a shot, but it ends up just being like you're floating heads and you can't really see the backdrop. Or you give your phone to a stranger and they take a photo and it just kind of like you have four chins or it cuts off someone's head. It doesn't capture the magic of what you're seeing and feeling. And you want to go back to them and say, can you do this again and again and again? And luckily, she had a local friend in town. We were meeting up with her for brunch, and I gave her my iPhone after, and I said, "Can you just get a shot of me and Erica, but a wide angle, so we're small, and you can see all this gorgeous Parisian architecture in the background." Didn't even want to be facing the camera. I'm like, "Take a picture of us walking back to the camera down the
Mhm.
cobblestone with those beautiful buildings, just so that I can remember this, like, this moment, this feeling." And so she did, and, she took my iPhone and she took these amazing photos for maybe 10 minutes. She got into it, she's like, go back up on the bridge, and I'll stay down on the bank," and it was really fun and playful, but it was able to get that perspective of just, kind of a fly on the wall almost that captured the memories, and when I looked at my phone after, I had goosebumps because, she had captured the spirit of our trip in a way that a selfie just never could. And, as I flew back home, I thought, "This is the best souvenir of my trip. How do I do that? Like, this is what all I wanna bring home on future trips. How would I do this again?" And so that was the genesis of the idea, is solving my own problem.
Wow. I mean, I completely resonate with that entire story. Everything you said about fortunes and
Mm.
not the photo that you wanted.
Yeah.
I have been there before I found
Mhm.
Photographer, of course. But
Mhm.
there's one thing to have the idea and be like, wouldn't it be nice if I had a photographer who could capture
Mhm.
these types of photos for me? And then there's another thing to build what you built. So it started as a side hustle for you, I understand. But what were those early steps that you took to go from idea to execution?
Yeah, so when I came back to Canada, I've got 2 kids. They were 4 and 6 at the time, a single parent. I worked full time at Microsoft, so I wasn't
Wow.
looking to start a business. I was
Yeah.
just, I was back. I loved my job. I loved the balance in my life, but this idea for Flightographer, it would just not, I don't know, I think everyone often has ideas in their heads about businesses, and they talk to you all the time, right? And So it was one of those situations where for 9 months, these ideas would just keep popping into my head and I'd push them down. I don't have time for this. I'm not doing a startup. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not a photographer. But then I got to the point where I'm like, I can't silence this idea. I got so curious. And so it's probably about 3 months before my 40th birthday. And I decided if I don't do something now, I'm just gonna forget about it forever, and so it was kinda nice to have that milestone birthday as the motivator, and so some of the early steps that I took were to, think of a name, and, I came up with Flytographer, secure the domain, and then think about, "Okay, how could this even work?" And so, it was a lot of just doing, get started and doing, and so one of the first things I did was I had a friend going to Paris, and I said, "Hey, if I hire a photographer to take some pictures of you, like, is that okay?" I was telling her about this business idea. Went on Craigslist, found a photographer, and this is like 13, 14. I Skyped with them, so there was no Zoom back then. I did a Skype and, told him about the concept, and he was game, and he met my friend, and he mostly took photos of them from behind, so, like, we learned a lot on that very first shoot where it was good, but it was like, "Oh, you got a lot of their backs." So this is not a
Mhm.
paparazzi, this is like, you need to engage with them more, and then I had another friend going to London, another friend going to Buenos Aires, and so I literally would just kind of experiment with friends traveling, hire local photographers, understand the right questions to ask, the right coaching to give them, and just keep iterating each one a little bit more, and I once I had enough, examples, kind of minimum viable product, as they say in tech, I thought I was ready to launch the site, and so when I launched the site, it was March 2013. We had 18 photographers in 18 different cities, and, it was like, "Okay, let's push live and launch this website," and, that's how we got to the launch date.
Wow. I mean, one of the first things I'm hearing too was the 3 months before your 40th birthday, and I
Mhm.
really appreciate hearing that because I think a lot of times we hear the, like, Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook in a dorm room kind of story, and
Mhm.
I'm feeling a bit like this at this phase in my life too of like, "Oh gosh, I'm no longer the young person in the room at work anymore. I'm
Mhm.
maybe the older person in the room at work." So I
Yeah,
just love hearing in a way and, like, months before 40 is so young, we all know that now, but,
yeah.
like, that we can do this at any time, and like you said, you
Mhm.
were so busy, you had an amazing career, you had 2
Mhm.
children that you were taking care of, and yet you paid attention to that little
Mhm.
whisper in the back of your
Yeah.
head.
I think it's so important for people to pay attention to the whisper, and I know Elizabeth Gilbert has a great book on this called Big Magic. But if these ideas that are floating around, they're going to tap and then they're going to knock and then they're going to smack. And if you don't become aware of that, you can miss opportunities. But I also think you need to align that with your gut because I've had ideas in the past and I didn't end up doing anything about them. And I think with Flightographer, I just somehow deeply, deeply knew that I needed to build this. And it was something that I couldn't not do, and so, yeah, getting it out there in the world was, a lot of getting over what do they call it? Imposter syndrome because I wasn't a
Mhm.
photographer. I'd never been an entrepreneur. Who was I to think I could do this thing? And I say to people, these are things a lot of us feel and have inside of us, and should always remember everyone trying something for the first time has those thoughts. They've never done it either. And so just start, just do, just learn and iterate. And you can, really do way more than you ever dreamed.
Creating a strong brand is about so much more than just a logo or a color palette, as you all know well. It defines who you are to your guest, and that's why I love working with Logify. Their platform helps short term rental hosts and boutique hotel operators put their brand front and center. Customize a direct booking website that looks and feels like you, not just another cookie cutter listing. Plus, Logify makes it easy to centralize your business needs, managing guest communication, bookings, listing updates, and more all in one place. Visit logify.com and use code SWEET20, that's sweet like hotel suite, for 20% off their annual plans to go from running a rental to building a brand. Check out the link in the show notes for more. You mentioned minimum viable product. And so
Mhm.
that gives me a little insight in the sense that maybe your background from Microsoft at least had you know how to build a basic website. You'll tell me if I'm right or wrong about that. But you mentioned when you launched, you had 18 photographers. So
Mhm.
where in the world were they? Were they people that you had found on Craigslist? And how
Mhm.
were you structuring the deals with them in the beginning? Because I imagine, they didn't hear of you yet. You
Mhm.
probably now have so much inbound of photographers wanting to work with you.
Mhm.
But how did you, reach out to them through the interwebs and say, "Hey, do you
Yeah.
wanna be part of this?"
Yeah. So, I mean, exactly that. Most of them, like, there was no global market for vacation photography. So, this was something that didn't exist. So, trying to convince them was really hard in the early days because there was no examples of it out there. And
Right,
so, I almost became a salesperson. I started off doing most of it online and reaching out to people on, like, Craigslist and places where photographers were offering things. And then I started to just reach out to photographers I found on their personal websites. But I made a trip to Europe. I actually sold my engagement. I got divorced a couple years before I'd started Flytographer, and I'd sold my engagement ring to fund a trip to go to Europe. And it's funny the cycle of life, right? And so I took the money. I went to Europe. I went to a bunch of cities, and I actually met some photographers face to face. And I think that was really important because not only did it help me understand the destinations and the places people would want to take photos there, but I got to like meet and feel the energy from these people and learn a lot about how to do interviews. And we hire less than 3% of photographers that apply now. Now that we have more momentum, but in the early days, it was really trying to understand what is the ingredient to the to be a successful vacation photographer. Because again, it didn't wasn't a thing out there, and so I really learned
right.
by going and meeting people and having coffee with them or having a lunch with them what worked. And can I tell you an embarrassing? Do you want to hear an embarrassing story?
Yes,
So
definitely.
I have a lot, but because I was not a professional photographer and I was just like, figuring this out as I went, I remember I was interviewing these two photographers in Berlin and they asked me, it was going well and they were like, yeah, okay, I see this good work. And they were wedding photographers and I was explaining, I can bring you business on a Tuesday morning or a
Right.
Wednesday night. So it's like serving you up work that wasn't there in your pipeline and you can get, diversify your portfolio, trying to help them understand, I'll do all of the customer acquisition and all you need to do is what you're great at, which is shoot. And so then they were like, okay, this sounds good, Nicole. But one more question for you. What format would you want us to deliver the photos in? And Katie, I had honestly not even gotten that far at that point. And I was like, I took a beat, and I think with entrepreneurship, you have to you just have to learn so much on the go. And I just said, panicked for about a second, thinking, okay, no, I'm a fraud. And then I just decided to say, what format do you typically send them to your other clients in?
That's exactly what I wanted to ask your opinion on format, actually.
It's honestly, it's like it saved me again and again. And so they're like, "Oh, we did blah, 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 blah." And I was like, "Oh," I'm like, "That's exactly what we do."
That's
And so,
exactly what we were
you
thinking.
just have to figure it out and roll with it. And I love Marie Forleo always says it's figure outable. She's got a book called that. And I love that
Yes.
word because I think that's what entrepreneurship is, most things are figure outable.
I love that. Going back to what you were talking about with imposter syndrome,
Mhm.
I included some of those stats at the beginning in your introduction. Flightographer is now an eight-figure business. You've been trusted by more than 100,000 travelers. You've added more than $30 million into the pockets of local photographers. You have more than 35,000 five-star reviews. At this point, are you like, "Oh, yeah, I know exactly what I'm doing," or do you still feel like you're just getting started?
You would think I would feel a little bit better at 12 years in. Um, and, there's definitely things that I feel more confident in but there's always new challenges and and I think that as a founder and as a CEO, you kind of have to it's like a new job description every 6 months to a year where you need to keep building your skills and learning new things as your company scales. So it humbles you constantly and there's always like right now, as I was sharing with you before the call, we're really focused on expanding awareness into the travel trade and travel advisor industry so people know about us there. So learning more about those industries and figuring out how do we integrate, how do we make it easy, and how do we reach people. There's so much to learn all the time, and, so I'm always feeling like, well, when are they gonna figure out that I don't know what I'm doing? But, at the same time, I also look back and go, "Yeah, I know how to do that now, and I've done this now." So, it's kind of a mix of both, and then, of
Yeah.
course, I have my youngest son still at home, and, he keeps me very humble every day, so both teenagers are excellent at.
They are very good at that, I
Yeah.
hear. I am terrified for that
Mhm.
stage. But let's talk about what you just said, travel advisors. I mean,
Mhm.
such an important part of the travel ecosystem,
Mhm.
crucial for travelers who want a bit more handholding, want that expertise, want people who know
Mhm.
destinations, who know
Mhm.
properties, etc. And I think it's brilliant that you're starting to work with a travel advisor community.
Mhm.
I know that they can now book shoots, photographer shoots into their client's itinerary. They can also earn
Mhm.
a commission on that. So talk a
Yeah.
bit about that structure and maybe the thinking behind it.
Yeah, we wanted to make it really turnkey and easy, and I think that we've always had a travel advisor program, but it was more of kind of it's over here on the side. It's not even that
Mhm.
discoverable on our website, and so now I've got a new COO, and she's owning really kind of growing that part of the business, but really deeply understanding the needs of travel advisors and how do we serve them and meet them where they're at to make it easy for them to book Flytographer for their clients, but also for them if they want to experience it. So we offer $100 off your first Flytographer shoot as a travel advisor so that you can understand what the experience is like, and get some incredible photographs that not only you can put on your wall to remember your trip, but you can use in marketing to help promote destinations as well. And every shoot has it's commissionable. And we have a lot of software, so it's really easy for you to coordinate and book it for your client directly within our booking platform. And so, yeah, we're investing in tech. We're trying to understand the community. We've got commissions, on even the same customer comes back, you get the commission again. So we're really trying to figure out how do we serve that community, get the word out. And what we've heard from travel advisors is that it's something their clients don't always consider. But then when they explain to them, like, hey, you're going to come back from this like really special trip with memories that you're gonna put on your wall that are, stunning and take you right back
Mhm.
to that moment, but also that hour you spent with Roberta in Rome, you're gonna learn so much about the city and, it's just a great way to rub elbows with the locals. So travel advisors have always said it's a great, thing that also lives on their walls and reminds that customer, that client of that trip that travel advisor put them on because it's a living memory in their mall. Yeah.
Yeah. I think if their customer hasn't considered it, it's just because they don't know it exists. And even
Yeah.
like you said, I mean, you've started this 12 years ago. Still,
Yeah.
I think if you say vacation photography, some people might just think of exactly what you're talking about,
Mhm.
iPhone photos and, taking
Yeah.
pictures themselves.
Mhm.
For anyone who's listening, who's a travel advisor who wants to become a part of the program, you can check out flytographer.com/sweet success. And you will see some of my own photographer photos on there, guys. As I mentioned, am a huge, huge fan. It is probably the first thing I do after I've booked a trip is go to see if Nicole has a photographer in the destination I'm traveling to. I've done 6 shoots since 2018 in places like London, Paris, Orlando, Florida, York Beach, Maine, and everything you just said, Nicole, is so accurate. I was just thinking about the family photos I have hanging upstairs, and I think almost all of them are from photographer photo shoots.
Mhm. I love that you've got them hung up. Not everyone
Yeah.
gets to that last mile of, like, printing and hanging is not easy, but the ROI, like, of, just, like, every day you get to look revisit your favorite stories, and that's actually our mission at Flightographer is to help people remember their favorite stories forever and to help capture them, to help get them up on the wall so that, you get that serotonin rush every time you walk back past it on the way to the kitchen.
Yeah, and it's kinda like what you said about the company in the sense that, on the day to day, you're probably focused on what you have to do and all the things that you haven't accomplished yet. But yet when you take a moment to look back 12 years, you're like, "Wow, look at what I've built." I
Mhm.
felt that when I was pulling those photos for you guys of selects from my favorite shoots and
Yeah.
putting memories to that and saying, "Oh, wow, this is what was happening then." And
Mhm.
almost not realizing at the time how I'm gonna get a little emotional, like,
Yeah.
how special those photos would become.
I think that's something that, when we look back at the photos, oftentimes, and I'm guilty of this too, like I'll get the photos, I'm like, oh, like my hair, or I wish I was 10 pounds slimmer, or whatever the
Yep.
silly thought is in the moment. But then a year later, 5 years later, I'll look back at that photo at 5 years younger me, and I'm like, I looked great. What was I talking about? And also, like, the thing, especially as a parent, my kids were really young when I started Flytographers. They were 4 and 6, and now they're 18 and 20. And over the years, as you can imagine, I've had, met a lot of photographers, taken my kids around, to
Yeah.
meet them as well, and I have a lot of, photo shoots, and we just launched this new feature, last quarter called Shared Galleries, where if you have a Flytographer account and maybe your husband has a Flytographer account or your friends, um, one person usually books the shoot and pays for the shoot, and then the photos are in their account. And so with
Yes.
this new feature, you can share your gallery to anyone you want, your grandma, your mom, your if you did a girls shoot, all your friends. And if they just sign up for a free Flytographer account, that will show up in their shared galleries tab. And so when we launched this, my older son, who's 20, he's off at university, he suddenly in his Flytographer account got access to all of these galleries from going back to 2013 of all the memories from when he was little to, like, and we just sat there, and I sent it to some of my friends who I've done girlfriend shoots with over the years, and we all just went down memory lane together. It was really fun to go back and look at these beautiful memories, because I look at my iPhone and it's cluttered with screenshots of
Yep.
random thoughts and a million things, and it's just like pure that's just me, but my iPhone reel is pure chaos.
I
But
don't
going
think it's just you. I think most people's iPhone reel is pure chaos.
so it was just, I don't know, it was just a really, good reminder about the power of professional photography in a beautifully
Yes.
composed, and also just to share that with the people that matter in your life and to relive those. Remember that thing we did with Claudia in Lisbon, and she took us down that alley, and, just it's what fires me up, so.
It's so true, and it's funny because you would think in today's day and age with the iPhone, I mean, the iPhone camera is incredible, absolutely, but
Yeah.
yet still the photos don't hold a candle to a professional photographer, and now maybe that's partially user error on my side, but having, like you said with your friend in Paris,
Mhm.
zooming out, seeing the broader
Yeah,
landscape,
yeah.
capturing those candid moments of you guys chatting or having a glass of wine together, or whatever it might be,
Mhm.
that pulls you back into that moment more than the
Yeah.
selfie of the 2 faces floating together.
Exactly. And also one of the things we hear a lot from people is, and we have customers that, they prioritize Flytography. They always book it, and one of the tips they give, or they share that they do, is they book it at the beginning of their trip, because A, then they benefit from all the great local tips their photographer is sharing with them. And B, they feel this, like, permission to leave their phone down and not be
Right.
trying to capture every single thing, because they've got memories checked. It's done. They know
Yeah.
they're gonna get beautiful ones. And so, yes, it's always great to have a mix of, like, candid, like, grabbing, like, photos of things here and there, but there's less of a pressure of, like, I've gotta get a memory that, is
Right.
is gonna be something that's gonna remind me of this trip, because they've already done that. And so they can be
Or
more
I need to
present.
bother the stranger on the street to take
Yeah.
the umpteenth photo of us that I still don't really like.
Yeah.
My husband is a great example of this because when I first
Yeah.
started booking, he'd be like, "Oh my god, a photo shoot? Like this what are we
Yes.
doing? Like, no, no, no." And now he
Uh-huh.
doesn't say a word, and he says
Yeah.
it's because he's supporting me, but BS. I'm gonna call him out on it right now. I think he loves the photos too, and I think he likes the memories, and I
Yeah.
think exactly like you said, for the rest of the trip, we don't need to think about taking a picture
Yeah.
if we don't want to because we know we have amazing ones coming.
I love that you just said that, because it's bringing up a couple things for me. First of all, taking photos on vacation has been around for decades. People
It's
always wanted to.
vacation.
It's a vacation, and they take a
Cameras,
crystal
maybe.
camera, and they'd wanna take a beautiful, photo somehow. Like, my grandparents were big, like, they took a million photos when they traveled. And it kinda gets a bad rap because of the selfie culture and influencers, and, all the kinda narratives that people pull from that. But there is a human need to want to document your stories and your memories, and on vacation, it's such an important time to do that. And one of the biggest challenges we our customers tell us is convincing their reticent partner that this is a good idea. And I've seen this over the years. And, what always I love is the turnaround story when, they convince them to do it and then going in a little begrudgingly because they're feeling like it's going to be like school photos or wedding photos or those like stiff pose, someone barking at them. And what they discover is because we recruit photographers who have great personalities. It's a cornerstone to kind of what we do. So they're gonna like say, like, let's meet Guido in Rome. And Guido is gonna be like so friendly and put them at ease. And then by the end, the husband or the boyfriend is like best friends with the photographer and they're chatting
Always.
about like local sports or like local coffee culture. And, they're like, "Oh, that wasn't so bad." And then when they see the photos, it's photos of the people they love in a beautiful spot and they fall in love. And so it's so fun to see that sort of like transformation of like, I don't think I should like this to experiencing it, really loving that connection with the local, and then seeing those photos of the people they love that are just on a whole other level than what an iPhone does. It's very satisfying to me, to be honest.
That's
Thanks for that.
exactly it. My husband's family has been vacationing in York Beach, Maine since his parents were children, so they go every summer. It is like their spot. I've been going now 15, 16 years with them, and I have fallen in love with it as well. And I was so happy to see that you guys had a photographer or a few photographers in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which is really close, and one of the
Yeah.
spots that they shoot is York Beach. There's been a couple of times that we've done shoots there now. And
Oh,
most recently, first it was just all of us kind of adults, and then slowly the babies started joining the crew. And this last shoot that we did last summer was the first time we had toddlers as well as babies, right? And they don't cooperate. And if
no.
you were there watching the chaos of this photo shoot, you would be like, "This is a waste of time." And I think that's
Right.
actually how a lot of us felt was like, "This was super dumb. Why?" Like, we can't even get
Yeah.
these kids to, like, not
No,
s to stay still, let alone, like,
no.
smile or do anything. The photos were amazing. The ability this photographer had to capture the actual energy of these kids and, like, find these moments. I'm like, I would never get that photo on my iPhone, and now I have these amazing family photos together of our small family, of the broader family. That's the power right there.
Yeah, and I mean, like, capturing the chaos is, like, real and authentic, and you're like, if they're flailing or they have big feelings or whatever's going on, then
Yep.
capturing the realness of that is actually awesome too. So, I think
Yeah.
sometimes parents are worried their kids aren't gonna behave, but, the photographers are so used to that, and they know how to wrangle it, and you're gonna get a memory that actually is very real to where they're at, and it's just as fun.
Exactly. Since you started the company, there have been a lot of copycat companies that have emerged. What do you see as photographers' point or points of differentiation in the space?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that, and it's always great for people to have more choice for sure. But the way I look at it is we have baked into the DNA of Flytographer obsession with customer experience. And that comes from my background. That's the work I did at Microsoft. And so when I started the business, I really focused on building a flow that wasn't scalable to start with, but was really looking at like what are all the things that go into making a successful photo shoot? What are all those ingredients? And so from it, hiring photographers that are really good at making people feel at ease, because for most of our customers, they've never done a photo shoot before, right? This is their
Yeah.
first time outside of a wedding or a
Mhm.
school. Many people are experienced. So that is a key thing is that our photographers are hired and coached and trained around how do they make people feel comfortable and that they can be directed in a way that brings out their authentic self. They make it fun. So really focusing on the personality and the skills of those photographers. So we hire less than 3% of the photographers that have applied. So we could have 25,000 photographers in our network. We could be in way more cities, but we are really intentional about um, keeping the community like it's highly vetted, handpicked, and so that if you're booking a photographer, that they're going to make it fun. It's going to feel good. It's going to be easy, and you're going to get extraordinary photos. So the caliber of our photographers, you can just go to our website and you will see like the quality of the photos are elevated. They're incredible with the composition, the lighting, all the things, storytelling. So I think it's really the quality of the photographers and the customer experience. But then we also built in our booking, we have a custom booking platform. We didn't in the beginning. In the beginning, it was very much Wizard of Oz, me with email and it was very early stage, but now we've got like a full on booking platform for the last 7 years that has all these workflows. And so one of the things our customers love is we send them tips on how to pose and what to wear. And like we know that because we've done this so many times, we know what goes into making a good shoot. So there's all that coaching and advice that we share with customers pre-shoot to set them up for success. We're constantly elevating the quality of our photographers and, bringing that up. And so I think it's the combination of the two. And my team, we just really care about making the customer experience extraordinary. I've had everybody read Unreasonable Hospitality, and we
Love
talk
it.
a lot about again, it's often their first shoot. It's often a big milestone trip, like, or it's a surprise. 12% of our business is surprise proposals around the world. So it's a
Wow.
high intense moment. So you have a guy that's, planning a proposal in Lake Como and he's been dreaming about it for a year. So these are these moments that are so special to people. And so with our concierge team, for example, they really want to make sure that every customer feels seen and heard, and we are as excited for them as they are for this big moment. And so it's really intentional around how we think about customer experience, and I think that's reflected not only in the 35,000 five-star reviews we have, but we have a net promoter score NPS of 90, and it's been 90 for over a decade.
Wow.
And we work so hard to make sure that our customers feel seen and cared for, even when a hiccup happens, because hiccups happen. It's how you handle it. And so between that and the photographers and making sure we have value aligned photographers that also see that, and taking care of our photographers, I think is the last piece I would say. So I've been building this community for over 12 years. And, I think of like Crystal in Paris, who I have known from like the first year, and I have seen her, you know, um, have a boyfriend, get married, buy her first home, like all these like life milestones where,
Wow.
and I've met them multiple times. They're like family to me. And so we have photographers in all these cities and we treat them like, you know, a community. It's not like some of the other platforms out there where it's all about, metrics and money. And, these are people that help make these magical moments come to life for our customers. And so it's really important to us that they feel seen and heard and that their voices matter. And so really building the community is, I think, a big part of why Flytographer is successful is because then that's what our photographers tell us all the time as well.
The next time you're traveling or celebrating an important occasion, book a photographer photo shoot. They make it easy to capture memories by connecting you with hand-picked professional photographers in over 350 destinations around the world. I should know. Capturing memories with family and friends is super important to me, and I've booked photographers from Maine to Paris to London. A photographer shoot is an essential part of every trip I plan. They also have an incredible affiliate and travel advisor program. Add a photo shoot to your customer's next itinerary and earn 10% commission. Visit flytographer.com/sweet success for $25 off your first shoot or to sign up as an affiliate or travel advisor. That's FLYTOGRAPHER.com/sweet, like hotel suite success. Yeah. Sounds like you've built such like a symbiotic world in the sense of
Mhm.
not only looking after your photographers so that they look after the
Mhm.
guests so that the guests continue to shop and that
Yeah,
really kind of very clean ecosystem. But
yeah.
also you talked a lot about how 12% of shoots are proposals, these kind of once in a lifetime moments or
Absolutely.
people who have never done a shoot
Yeah.
before. And I think that's what makes hospitality as an industry so special and so challenging because a lot of times, if I think of my honeymoon, I got to spend a couple of nights at St. Regis Maldives. I was working for Marriott at the time, so I had a very lovely friends and family discount that made that possible. But, for the employees who work there, that's every day for them. They're checking in people every single day, and yet I would guess most of the guests who arrive there are on a milestone moment, have
Mhm.
never been to the Maldives, never thought they'd be able to come to the Maldives before, and so balancing that of, like, this is your everyday, but yet this is somebody's once in a lifetime is just so fascinating to hear even within your world as well.
Mhm. It is, and the stories, oh my gosh, like, the stories that we see, and I recently do you use Slack at all? So we have Slack, which is, like, just a messaging, and so for my HQ team, we're small, there's only 14 of us, but
Wow.
we launched this new Slack channel where, we give customers the opportunity to, after they share feedback, to share, a little bit about the reason they traveled and storytell with us, and it's so fun, Katie. So it's called the Joy Waterfall channel. So this our Joy Waterfall channel in Slack is just like a waterfall of joy. It's every customer that fills it out, you see their marquee, one of the photos from their shoot, and they'll tell us like why they decided to take this trip and like, the story behind it. And, just like last week, there was this guy, Alan, who's 80, and it was his birthday and he was taking his whole family to Costa Rica. So like his kids and his grandkids. And he's like, I just wanted to capture beautiful photos because all my favorite people are coming and it's my birthday. And so we'll hear like a million different stories like this all the time. But then you see Alan and he's so proud and he's got his whole extended family around him, the beautiful, like, Costa Rican kind of jungle background. And, it helps my team see our why. Like we're helping people remember their favorite stories forever. And so it's like things like that that help remind us of the work that we're doing, why we're here, and these special moments that people are celebrating that we're helping and our photographers are helping bring to life and document.
Yeah, absolutely, and it goes back to what you were talking about with the laser focus on customer experience.
Mhm.
Yes, the photos are amazing quality. I think it's very, I'm not a photographer, but may not be able to articulate why one photo is better than the other, but you can feel when photos are kind of cheesy or generic or staged versus when you look
Yeah.
at a portfolio and say, wow, that's incredible and really makes me look better than I thought and kind of captures the moment that I was feeling. The other thing that I really love as a user is your kind of concierge flow, where
Mhm.
once you've booked, you have at least what feels like on my side, a kind of dedicated person saying,
Yeah.
"Okay, we're just making sure that this is all happening and confirming," and again,
Mhm.
really elevating the experience before I've even stepped foot in the
Mhm.
destination or met the photographer.
Yeah, we have, like, a great concierge team, and, they are incredible, they are passionate, and they, really try to problem solve and be anticipatory with what they're doing, and, in those rare cases when something goes wrong, like a photographer, they're human, they're gonna get sick or they're gonna like, their, like, parents are in the hospital or something's coming up, and
Yeah.
these things don't happen often, but they do happen because it's life, and so then they're, like, thinking, "Okay, how do we've gotta make this happen. Let's reach out to other photographers. Let's figure out a new time." And so they just jump in like a SWAT team and are really good at keeping communication up with the customer to let them know, "I don't have new information, but I'm gonna reach out to you tomorrow morning at 8." Like, so they're really good at being, clear with, like, how things go, and when we can turn it around and solve the problem again, we share that in our team meetings because it's a great example of, like, when you turn it around, you show that customer that we're not just gonna like, "Oh, sorry you weren't happy," or "Sorry this thing happened." It really matters to us, and so we're gonna do everything we can to turn it around for you and make it right, and those customers end up being our most loyal in the end because they trust us, and I think that's the basis of our business is trust. It's the trust that we're going to hire great photographers that they'll feel good with, that if anything goes wrong, we're gonna have their backs, and I think especially with photography where you're vulnerable and you're in front of the camera, trust is the key thing, and I think that is really what differentiates us with our a lot of our customers is that they feel that trust.
Absolutely, I think a lot of other companies would just say, "Sorry, your shoot's canceled," and that would be
Yeah,
that, but
yeah,
you guys are doing everything you possibly can to make sure that's not
yeah.
the case.
We will lose money on this all the time, like, I don't ca I'm like, "We will lose we will figure it out, we'll refund a customer, we'll make it right," because
Right.
for me, I'm looking at, like a kind of like long-term value or LTV. Like if that customer comes as a proposal customer, then a year or two later, they'll come as a honeymoon customer. And then
Right.
my favorite thing too, Katie, is like, then like suddenly one customer is like on a baby moon and we're like, Jenny's pregnant, like, it's, like, so exciting, and then, like, "Oh my god, Jenny's pregnant again, and there's 2 kids," and, like, it's just the cycle of life and being invited to be part of this, is just it's so amazing.
Yeah, Rory Sutherland, who's a behavioral psychologist, he was on the show and he was talking about how a lot of businesses look at that transactional relationship. So, how
Mhm.
much can I possibly charge you for a
Yeah.
cup of coffee to get the most money out of you that first time?
Mhm.
But actually, it's the businesses who invest in the relationship that are going
Yeah.
to make much more money long term because, like you said, maybe that first shoot was just a family shoot or, just a couple shoot.
Mhm.
Are they gonna trust you with the proposal photo shoot if they've had a bad first
Yeah.
impression? Of course not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanna talk about another point of differentiation. Before we started
Mhm.
recording, you had mentioned that you are cooking up a new podcast. Keeping up with online reviews across platforms is tough, but FeedCheck makes it easier by bringing all reviews from all channels into one place. In addition to tracking your own feedback, you can even monitor competitors to see how you compare. They provide deep insights into customer sentiment, trending topics, common issues, and patterns that might otherwise be overlooked. Plus, real time alerts mean you can respond quickly before things escalate, and AI powered suggestions help you craft better responses. So, if you want to stay ahead of your reputation, book a demo with FeedCheck at feedcheck.co/sweet success or through the link in the podcast notes.
I am, and I'm like yeah, it's pretty new. We haven't started filming it yet, but the idea is that, at Flytographer, um, most people don't know we exist. So how do we drive more awareness about Flytographer? And this is, one of the things that I was thinking about is like, how do we help people understand what we are and why capturing memories matters? And so the podcast is tentatively called Capturing Magic Travel Memories by Flytographer. And we're going to do a 12-episode series on our top 12 cities to start. And we're going to interview local photographers, or I will be the host. I will be interviewing one or two photographers in every city. So from Paris to Tokyo, each episode will focus on a specific destination. We'll get local insight from those photographers. And some of them have been working with me for over 10 years. And so they're going to share their favorite things to do, what the recommendations they have, where the best places to capture photos are, some of their favorite customer stories, but also things not to do, like, that kind of tips. And then we're also going to have a second part of the podcast where I speak with a travel advisor or an expert around planning trips to that destination and tips and ideas that they have. So, really excited to create something that's valuable for people considering these destinations from the lens of what we bring to the table. And so we'll be looking to find great travel advisors that focus on those destinations. So if you know anyone, for sure reach out, and ideally we'll hopefully be launching it in June, and then episodes will kind of drip out from there. So that's the idea.
Amazing. All right, travel advisors, destination specialists, reach out to Nicole, get yourself
Yes,
on the
thank
show.
you.
That's going to be incredible. Another thing I wanted to talk about is Mother's Day is coming up this
Mhm.
weekend. And personally, this will be no surprise given my obsession with the platform, but I
Yeah.
think a photographer shoot or a gift card for a mama or a mama to be is an incredible gift, especially a gift card. I mean, you can just buy that literally the night before, and it looks like
Yep.
you were really thoughtful and on
Mhm.
top of things. I'm not just saying this because I'm dropping a very large hint for my husband. In case he needs some inspiration. But you must see a ton of family memories being captured, and I imagine a lot of gift cards being bought around big holidays like this.
Mhm. About 40% of our shoots are booked by moms who are just they wanna be in the family photos, and so it's so relatable. I can relate to this where you're the one, quite often, not always, but quite often, the one that's noticing that, "Hey, this is a moment worth capturing," and taking action to, chronicle the moment. And what ends up happening is then that mom or that person isn't in the memories because they're corralling, like, come on, like, kids, stand by this and do this or whatnot. Or if they ask someone else to do it, then the photo is just not, it's not always flattering or whatever. So I think that the reason 40% of our business is these moms that want to book photo shoots is because they know that they can be in the memories. And it's not just for them, it's also for their kids. And I think this is such an important point to sit on is, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, when your kids look back at the family vacation memories and mom is missing, that's really sad to think about, right?
Yes.
And I think a lot of people have that challenge that there's like a million photos of them and the kids with their husband, but then there's only like a few of
Yep.
mom. And so I say, don't just do it for yourself, do it for your kids and your future grandkids because you're the heart of the story. There needs to be evidence of you in these memories too. And so, yeah, a lot of moms just take action into their own hands and book these shoots. And when we see that, their partners are buying gift cards or like celebrating them and that's awesome to see. And, we've gotten over 35,000 moms back in the photo over the years. That's one of my favorite stats as a
I
mom
love
because
that.
35,000 customers that are now, they have memories, for their kids and their families.
It's so true. I think it's called, like, Invisible Mom or something on
Mhm,
social media, and it also makes me think
mhm.
of the memes of, like, when I take a photo of my partner and it's, like, him
Yeah,
looking so great,
yeah,
and then, like, when I ask
right?
him to take one of me and we look like a Shrek Lemming
Disaster.
over here. Yeah, exactly. So, we can leave it to the pros at Flytographer to
Yeah,
make sure we look our
we
best.
got you.
If you were launching Flytographer today, is there anything you would have done differently than you did 12 years ago?
Oh my god, a million things, like, honestly, a million things. I think that, one of the biggest things I would have focused on from the start was being profitable. As everyone in the travel industry well knows, COVID was, a shell shock to all of us, and prior to that, we had raised a seed round a couple years earlier, so we were in this, like, "Let's grow at all costs" type of mindset. We weren't profitable before COVID. And so when COVID hit, it almost well, we had to lay off 80% of the team. We almost went out of business. It was a really hard lesson. And so with that, I would have focused much more on slower growth, but more profitable growth. And we're bootstrapped now and we're profitable. We've been profitable, since then. So I think it just gives you a lot more control over your destiny as a founder. I think the other thing that I would have done, and this is more on the personal side, is there's many years where I was just grinding and working around the clock and not taking care of my health and myself. And um, I didn't feel good for many years. Like I was just like, make it to that glass of wine at 6 p.m., make it to, Saturday morning where I can like collapse and recharge. And that is
Right.
not a way to live. It's a marathon when you're launching a startup. It's not a sprint. And so being intentional about what fuels you, from an earlier stage in building your startup, I think is key. So, for me, that's heavy weight training. There's certain things I do now and I actually feel I'm 52 and I feel like I'm in my 30s again. And it's
Wow.
because of the things I've been doing. Whereas if I talked to me 10 years ago, it would have been completely different. So
Yeah.
don't sacrifice your own personal health because you are the foundation for a lot of people, and so you gotta pour that gas into your tank first.
That is such good advice. Wow, I have chills from that. Taking care of yourself
Yeah.
as almost a selfless thing, because I
Yeah.
do think a lot of us
Yeah.
as women, especially as moms, it's like
Mhm.
everything else has to come first, and you probably saw how successful Flytographer was being and had the capability to become, that it
Yeah.
was always putting yourself second until you realize that's not gonna sustain anyone or anything.
No, it's not, and I think the other great thing that I wanna mention quickly is, during the pandemic, a friend of mine who's a founder referred her conscious leadership coach to me, and I've been working with her for 4 years now, and she's really changed how like, my mindset and how I think about things, and allowed me to really approach challenges from a place of curiosity versus a place of fear. So before the pandemic, I definitely was more of a, like warrior and like, kind of approaching all of the challenges of running a startup from a more of a place of fear. And she's really helped me shift to being more neutral. So like when stuff hits you and it always will. There's always waves of challenges. I'm able to like receive it from a more neutral place and, go above the line and be more curious about how I can solve it. And there's a whole set of tools she's taught me. And I wish I'd had those from the beginning because I think that's super important as a founder.
That's incredible. Really good advice as well. Well, Nicole, I want to ask you the last three questions that I ask everyone. And the first is, what was the best hospitality experience you've ever had?
Yeah. So a few years ago, I flew to a resort in the Great Bear Rainforest in British Columbia called Nemo Bay. And Nemo Bay is a luxury fishing resort. I'm not a fisher woman person. I didn't go for the fishing. I actually went there for a retreat and a women's retreat. And so you take this little float plane off of Vancouver Island. It was like a war plane. It was like a 1939 bomber, and it takes off on wheels and it lands in the water with like floating somehow. So we're on this crazy plane and we land, and this is beautiful. You have to Google this place. It's stunning. Landed there. And when we got off, the staff of the resort were waiting with a cold drink for everybody and a cold towel. And from that moment on, I was like, ooh, they are paying attention. And it was just the little things. So it was everything from how the rooms were designed to like the hot, warm cookie that would show up at 4 p.m. every day in your room,
Mhm.
to little things like, I mean, the meals were phenomenal and deeply local, and they tell you about it, and they really paid attention to all your, allergies and food preferences, and they always knew your name. But they had this dock, and so you're sitting out on the dock, and I'd go there with my coffee in the morning, and they'd come up and say, "Can I get you a blanket, Nicole?" And like, "Can I refill your coffee?" And like, they were just everywhere you were. They were thoughtful and anticipatory, and it was all these little special touches. And we I could talk to you for hours about how much I love Nemo Bay and all the local experiences that we did during the, I think, 3 days that we were there, but I felt so seen, felt so cared for. It was very elevated. It was an investment, and the memories I have from that trip, I will never, ever forget.
And on the opposite side of what sounds like an absolutely incredible experience,
Mhm.
what was the worst hospitality experience you've ever had?
This one's kind of funny. I was traveling to a basketball tournament. This is about, I don't know, this is, I think, pre-COVID actually. This was a while ago. And there's this famous, casual restaurant chain in British Columbia. I'm not gonna name it. And I was there with another family, and we had just gotten out of hours long basketball tournament, and it finished late. We didn't get there till like 9 o'clock at night. The teenagers were starving, and we got sat at this table, and we put our orders in, and about 45 minutes later, the food still hadn't come. And so we're like, "Is there any, like, can you throw some bread?" Like, these kids are like, they're getting wily. And
Yeah.
um, the waiter was so busy, frazzled, dismissive, and they just didn't care, right? And they were overwhelmed. And so we asked the managers, is there anything you can do to expedite things faster? Or like, it's almost been an hour now and we've been sitting here and we just need like, these kids are, they were like 10, and it was like
Yeah.
10 p.m. at this point. And there was a manager who was probably 22, came over to the table, and I don't know if there was more to the story, but he started getting mad at us for complaining. And we were just simply saying, we just need something. Like, we've been
Yeah.
trying to explain our problem, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're not looking to get a free meal. Let me just tell you that. Like,
Right. We're just
my
looking to
friends
get
that
a
were not
meal.
not mattering to us. They're also entrepreneurs and have a really successful business. So they understand customer service as well.
Yeah.
And this manager came in, he had a lot of energy, and he started getting mad at us and said, "Fine, I'll just comp all your food," and da da da. And like, we didn't really want the food to be comped. We just wanted to be heard and seen. And then I think there was some more words said, and at one point he said, "Well, I'm gonna comp all your food, but I don't want you to come back to this restaurant again." And it was just like the biggest shock of my life as someone who's obsessed with customer experience because like, there was just so many assumptions on his part, like, I think he assumed we were trying to get a free meal, and, like, nobody was trying to get a free meal. We just wanted food
To
for
feed
our
your
hungry
children.
children that, were playing an out-of-town basketball tournament at 10 PM at night, and, yeah, it was one of those moments where I was like, "Oh, like, do I write to this company and tell them?" And, I probably should have, but I think I just got swirled away with life and whatnot, but it was an example of, like, all the things that can go wrong with someone who feels like they should be in charge and on top of things, but totally missing the plot.
Wow, that might be the worst one I've ever heard, actually. He
What
might
do you
take
mean?
the award for that. That is horrible. The only thing I can
Yeah.
say is if they were around 22, one day in the future, if they choose to have children or are able to have
Yeah.
children and they need to feed a 10-year-old, they're gonna
Yeah,
think back to that moment and feel pretty
right?
darn bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Wow. Anyway, wow. Final question for you. What does hospitality mean to you? We're never going to
Mhm.
ask that guy. And is there anyone, a person, or a brand that you think has
Mhm.
truly mastered it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, hospitality goes back to, you know, feeling seen, feeling heard, um, and a little bit of the anticipatory side too, so those thoughtful touches. I've had great experiences with brands. I think Four Seasons is one that whenever I've stayed at a Four Seasons, it's not just that they anticipate and, they know these things about you and there's things in the room and that show you that they know that, but if there's ever any issue or question or problem, they're very happy to and anywhere I've stayed at the Four Seasons globally has seen that, but, I was actually in Phoenix, last weekend. My son's looking at a university there, and we stayed at this new hotel called the Global Ambassador,
Hmm.
and do you know that one?
I do. My best friend lives in Scottsdale and they have been talking
Oh.
about it nonstop.
And I have to say it was such a great experience, you never know, and, I had a friend that had stayed there a couple weeks earlier, so she tipped me off, and I looked at it's a bit of an investment, and I found a deal on, like, lastminute.com or Hotel Tonight or one of those sites, and it came up, and I was like, "Okay, this is a sign from the universe." So I booked it through this third-party platform, and I'm always thinking when I show up, they're probably gonna be like, "Oh, she's a third-party platform booking," and,
Mhm.
um, when I showed up, they were phenomenal. They made me feel so seen and heard. My room was ready. The way the front desk, woman approached us and treated us, I felt instantly like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here," and everything is this but it was sort of the whole property, every touch point. So whether it was ordering room service and just the acknowledgement using your name and, just all the things that you expect from a property like that to being by the pool. And the next day I came to the pool again and the same waiter was like, "Oh, can I get you, um, another" of the drink I was having. I had a specific drink, and she's like, "Do you want another one of those, Nicole?" And, "Oh, is your son still in the room?" Because my son hadn't come down, and just that being seen in those small micro interactions where you feel like they really want you there
Mhm.
and they care about your happiness. To me, that and the hotel was beautiful, and all the other things. The food was phenomenal, but it was just those little touches, and like there was a cutting board with a knife and a lime in our room with the what do you call it? The mini bar, right? The mini bar had local tequila and like all of the like an actual lime with a I don't know, it was just interesting, all the little thoughtful touch points. So that was one just from 2 weeks ago.
Well, Nicole, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Katie. It was so much fun.
All right, everyone, it's time for today's sweet summary where I break down the key insights and actionable takeaways from today's conversation. It was such a joy to finally meet Nicole. If you couldn't tell, I've been a bit of a fangirl for Flytographer for, wow, about 7 years now. And as you heard, I got a little emotional trying to explain why, but I think it comes down to this. Flytographer has captured memories, people, places, and times in my life that I'll never get back again. My beloved dog before he passed away, my mom before she got sick, myself when I was pregnant with my daughter, and no, don't worry, not in a cheesy maternity shoot kind of a way. But in speaking with Nicole, it's clear that the feelings I took away from each and every shoot were exactly the emotions she hoped to spark when she first launched the company. To me, Nicole's story is one of truly listening to yourself. When she first had the idea for Flytographer, she tried to push it aside. She was a single mom of two with a demanding, successful career. She didn't have time to start a business. And besides, she told herself, I'm not an entrepreneur. But that quiet whisper didn't go away. It became a tap on the shoulder and then a persistent tug at her heart. Eventually, she decided to go for it months before turning 40. In the 12 years since she launched, Nicole has faced just about every high and low imaginable: a global pandemic that decimated travel demand, having to lay off 80% of her team, the weight of investor expectations, and a moment where it looked like she might go out of business. But she did more than survive. She evolved. Nicole shifted away from hustle culture and towards a more mindful, aligned way of working. She prioritized her well being, reconnected with her why, and built a company that not only rebounded, but is now thriving. Flytographer's profitable and is still delivering the kind of heart centered customer service that creates lasting memories for families around the world, just like mine. And that concludes another episode of Sweet Success. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe, rate, and review the show. We all know how important those 5-star reviews are. I also want to say a massive thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in. It means the absolute world to me. And I'd love to hear from you. If you have ideas for future guests, new topics to cover, or even just want to say hi, don't be shy. Message me through our website, sweetsuccesspodcast.com, or on social media at Sweet Success Podcast. That's sweet like hotel suite. Once again, I'm your host, Katie Cline, and I'm super excited to see you all next week.